While walking through the flea market looking for good deals, I came across this small console that looks almost exactly like a PlayStation 5, but in miniature. It's much smaller. For just $9, it came with two controllers that looks very similar to the original PlayStation 5 controllers, along with an HDMI cable, a power cable, and even an SD card already plugged in. I didn't know much about it, but I decided to take a chance and buy it, hoping it would at least work. Let's take a closer look at what we are working with. First off, the connectivity. On the front, you've got an on-off switch, a reset button, and two USB ports, with one already connected to some kind of module, probably for the controllers. On the back, there's an HDMI port, which surprised me. That's not something you've seen on those old-school consoles with basic AV cables. It's a small detail, but it's telling me this thing is a little bit more modern. Now, let's talk about the build quality. The console itself, yeah, I won't sugarcoat it. It feels super light and the plastic is cheap. It's definitely not premium, but for $9, who cares? There's no signs of any cooling vents or fans either, which probably means this thing doesn't get hot enough to need them. And the controllers? Pretty much the same story. They're light, almost too light, even with the batteries in them. And yeah, the seller threw in the batteries too. They feel cheap, but again, we are talking $9 here. I do appreciate that they work, and the joysticks actually feel smooth, which was a nice surprise. At the bottom, there's an on-off switch, and where the speaker grill should be, there are two LED lights that let you know they are on. Overall, the controllers look like they haven't been used much. They are in a pretty good shape. Alright, enough with the details. Let's fire this thing up and see what it can actually do. For power, I'll hook it up with a portable USB power bank. It barely uses any energy, which is kind of impressive. And for the video output, I'm using my personal monitor. Once I turned it on, a logo with Empire Storm popped up, and right above the loading bar I could see a list of consoles being loaded. When it finally boots, you are greeted with a selection of consoles ready to play. From what I can see, each console has a collection of pre-installed games. But enough talk. Let's get started. So the PlayStation 1 games run beautifully on this console. The graphics are smooth and true to the original, making it feel like just playing on the real thing. I jumped into Crash Bandicoot and loved every second. Plus, with the second controller, you can have some serious fun challenging your friends in Taken 3. PSP games are a bit more demanding, but they are still run well with some adjustments. For example, GTA Vice City Story looks great after tweaking the resolution for a better frame rate. The Nintendo 64 games run great on this console, and the visuals are sharp. I tried Super Mario 64 and it felt as magical as ever. The default controllers aren't perfect for these games, but luckily you can connect better ones and remap the buttons. Sega classics like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Street of Rage 2 run flawlessly. The colors are vibrant and the gameplay is smooth without any interruptions. It's just as fun as you remember, with no compromises on performance. The SNES emulator delivers a fantastic experience.
Can you believe we have 1,232 games only on SNES in this console? That's crazy.
Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country both look crisp and play smoothly, bringing back that classic 16-bit nostalgia. The games felt just as good as they did on the original hardware. The same goes for NES, no issues at all. The graphics looks great, the colors are vibrant, and it's truly a pleasure to play retro games on this console. I can already say I highly recommend giving it a try. Arcade games really stand out on this console. For example, Metal Slug delivers smooth and fast gameplay, perfectly recreating the classic arcade experience. While Pac-Man feels as just responsive and clean as the original, it's a fantastic way to relive the golden age of arcades right at home. What else can I say about the Game Boy Advance emulator? Surprisingly, it looks incredibly sharp on such a big screen. The image isn't blurry at all, and it's actually quite engaging to play games designed for small display on a larger screen. While Metroid Fusion delivers smooth action and exploration, making it a joy to experience these classics in a whole new way. Pokémon FireRed is as nostalgic and fun as ever. The same thing can be said about the Game Boy Color games. They look fantastic on a bigger screen, with vibrant colors and smooth performance. Playing classics like The Legend of Zelda and Pokémon feels just as magical as ever, but with added charm of seeing them in such clarity, it's a great way to relive those handheld memories.
Oh look, we have Pokémon Crystal version. Nice.
I couldn't skip mentioning the Sega Dreamcast. I managed to play Crazy Taxi and it ran beautifully, just like on the original console. The performance was spot on and truly impressive. It's incredible how many games are packed into this little console, and the variety is impressive. You can jump from 3D classics like Crash Bandicoot on the PS1 to classic favorites like Afterburner on Sega Genesis. Whether you are into platformers, shooters or racing games, the library has something for everyone. With over 35,000 titles to be exact, it's hard to believe a device this small can deliver so much. And what I've played so far doesn't even represent all the consoles available on this system. There are plenty more from Sega, a wide range from Atari, Commodore, Color, and many other platforms. Plus, you can add even more. For example, I know for sure Sega Saturn is compatible, but it's not included in the default BIOS list. If you'd like, we can explore adding even more consoles and games in another video. Let me know in the comments which games or consoles you'd like me to try next on this console. When I opened the main menu, the first thing that caught my eye was the EMUELEC settings, and that instantly answered a big question. What's running this console? This console is basically a mini computer running a custom version of Linux called EMUELEC, specifically designed for retro gaming. That's the backbone. But here's where the magic happens. To run all these games, the console relies on RetroArch, the program responsible for running the cores of each console. Think of it like the engine that powers everything. And then there's Emulation Station, a user interface that makes everything easy to navigate. It organizes all the games and consoles into a clean, simple, and user-friendly menu. It's like having a virtual gaming library right at your fingertips. The main menu comes with all the tools you need to fine-tune your gaming experience. EMUELEC settings. Here you can adjust the resolution or decide whether the system boots into Emulation Station or the RetroArch menu. Game settings. Here you can turn on save states, enable fast forwarding, or tweak gameplay options. Controller settings. Here you can easily configure your gamepads, so no headaches here. UI settings. Here you can customize the interface with different themes in Emulation Station for a fresh look. We also have sound settings and network settings if you want to connect to Wi-Fi, update the system, or download extras. And we have system settings. You can check the information about this console or explore more advanced options. But here's the cool part. There are even more advanced settings for those who know their way around. You can fine-tune graphics settings for a more authentic experience, adjust VRAM usage, or even load your own BIOS files to replace the pre-installed ones. And if you want to dig deeper, you can jump straight into RetroArch for even more customization and optimization settings. So, what's under the hood? A quad-core M-Logic S905L processor. It's not the most powerful chip out there, but for retro gaming, it gets the job done. 2 gigs of RAM, which is more than enough to keep everything running smoothly. As shown on the information screen, the console runs on a Linux-based architecture with EMUELEC as an operating system. When I plugged the SD card into my computer, 2 partitions showed up. The first one, labeled EMUELEC, seems to contain all the BIOS files needed for the emulators to work. The second partition, named Game, has folders for each console, where all the game ROMs are stored. What's cool about this is that you can probably add your own ROMs here, expanding the game library even further and customizing it however you want. We pop the SD card back into the console and give it a quick restart using the reset button. Okay, so here's what I think about this console after testing it out. For just $9, this PlayStation 5 lookalike completely exceeded my expectations. It might not be the most premium device out there, and sure, the build quality is cheap, but the real value lies in its performance. With over 35,000 games pre-installed and support for so many iconic consoles like PSP, PS1, Sega, Nintendo, and more, this is a retro gamer's dream. It runs games smoothly, the emulation is solid, and you can even expand your library by adding your own ROMs. Whether you want to relive your childhood classics or just explore retro gaming, this little console delivers big for such a small price. Now, here's something interesting. While searching online, I found a very similar console listed on Amazon. It's not exactly the same, but it's very close to what I have here. If you are curious or want to check it out for yourself, I leave a link in the description below. So, it is perfect? No. But for $9, it's absolutely worth it. If you ever spot something like this at a flea market or secondhand store, don't hesitate. It's a steal. What do you think? Would you buy one of these mini consoles, or do you prefer playing on an original retro console? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss more awesome finds like this.